All right. What are we even doing here? What are we doing here? Talking about racing. Formula One. Formula One's the topic for today. Specifically, Formula One in America. 3 races in the United States this year.
Yes.
To my knowledge, unprecedented. The only other country with multiple races is Italy, which has 2. Italy also has an enormous Formula One fan base, as does most of Europe, as does a lot of the world. I mean, it's a global sport. So the United States has 3 races this year. 2 years ago, the United States only had 1 race. COTA, Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Last year they added Miami. This year we've got Austin, Miami, and Las Vegas. Night race. A lot of people fired up about it. I'm excited to see it. I don't know. Are there more F1 fans in America now than there were 5 years ago? Is America an untapped market that Formula One's going after? Why? Why is this happening?
I'm going with the latter. And I say that it's got to be untapped. This is an investment into not just America, US of A, but North America in general, to me. I know Canada's been on the circuit, Mexico City's been on the circuit and all that, but 3 races, that feels more like an investment into a fan base than so much a fan base screaming. I would also like to answer that with a question. Just like you did with you referenced Italy's fan base, right? How do they, capitalize on this investment? As they come here, yes, you're drawing interest, especially, beginning fans like myself. So, but how do you capture it? How do you keep me invested? You
got to have a good product, right?
Okay.
You have to have a good show. Or you have to have a better show than the competition, which for the United States, that's going to be NASCAR.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that you're fighting for TV space in America to reach that fan base, right?
Yeah. If we're not talking about just the races in America, they race about every 2 weeks. It's a pretty long season, 9 or 10 months with Formula One. I don't know the season with NASCAR, but it's kind of a weekly thing, right? They're sort of weekly.
Well, my point was more like they all happen on Sunday. Sunday is race day.
Yeah.
And you gotta, in order to get me, you gotta get me off of ESPN Plus and get me watching ESPN. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where NASCAR is here.
Right.
There is no Plus, ESPN Ocho. So that's one question I have. Like, where's that sustainability going to be?
So for me, I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of a growing fan base and a big potential market. Formula One, I believe they have 24 races on the calendar this year. I think they're only racing 23. I believe they canceled the race in China that was supposed to have been a week or 2 ago. I know, for me personally, growing up in the South, I was always around NASCAR. I've been to a couple of NASCAR races, and there's some cool stuff there, especially going to a NASCAR race. I mean, these things they're fast, they're loud, a lot of adrenaline, a lot of beer drinking, hooting and hollering. It's a party, and I can see that. I can see where the fandom comes from. But the style of racing that I prefer is the GP style, the road circuit style. Instead of just going round and round and round, we have to hit the brakes hard. We got to make right turns, acceleration zones. It's a totally different. The open wheel. I mean, they're 2 totally different styles of racing. And I think too, the Formula One as a brand especially for 2023, it's a sexier brand, you know. So generationally, you've got kind of the older generation in America who, if they were racing fans, they were probably, you know, the majority of them were probably NASCAR fans, right? And they probably grew up, maybe they had a local dirt track, they could go kind of see some of that stuff, you know. The drivers are approachable, you know, the sport's approachable, everything's kind of there. And yeah, we're F1, you know, you've got Ferrari and McLaren and Mercedes, and it's a lot more exotic. It's a lot more, you know. And Formula One does a pretty good job of like kind of building that brand. You know, it's a big money sport. They've recently, last year, they changed their regulations and put basically a salary cap, if you will, or a budget cap on teams because it was getting out of control. There were a couple teams, three teams who could spend $500 million, $500 million a year, every year, which is an insane amount of money for a race team that's fielding two cars, you know, and doing that year in, year out. But the F1 is and has been for a long time absolutely awash in money. And then they built that brand and that sexiness of that brand. And I think that F1's brand is, I would say, better than NASCAR's brand, just generally speaking, especially to younger generations right now. You know, everybody likes the sleek, the iPhone. You know, I don't know. I mean, branding is important.
Well, and I want to touch on that for a second. And speaking of fan bases and branding, you know, I do see those names: Ferrari, Lamborghini. You know, these are exotic. You know, but if I'm sitting there as an Italian entering the fan base, is that exotic to me? You know, the relatability for the American fan that's entering, where is our representation on this, you know, on the circuit?
Yeah, so for an Italian, no, it's not exotic, but it is a huge point of pride, right?
Exactly.
You know, Ferrari is synonymous with not just racing, but racing well, winning championships, you know, being the best race car in the world, right? Your Ferrari. That's what they want. So it's a point of pride. As an American, yes, you're right. Right now, we've got one race team, 1 out of 10 race teams, which is Haas, who is dead last in the standings. We have one driver who's an American, and this is his first year, and I think he's also dead last in points, which rookies, you're not going to get on the best team. You know, you're not going to jump into the hot seat kind of stuff, and it takes a thing. The problem with American drivers going, so I mean, first off, you've only got 20 drivers in Formula One, right? So there's a small, it's a hard, you know, hard nut to crack for a driver to get into that. The other problem is their junior circuits coming up, you know, so you're going to start with karting and all that, and then they kind of move into a little more advanced leagues, but they're running, you know, the majority of the circuits are in Europe, right? And it's a lot of European drivers because they have the familiarity with all these circuits. You know,
That's true.
They're, you know, kind of the mainstay, your Monzas, you know, your mainstay circuits. These guys have been driving it since they've been driving race cars that go on these tracks, you know. And the farm system for Formula One is a European farm system. We were talking about Japan earlier before the show. You were asking about that. Japan has a very good fan base. Japan is an excellent manufacturer of engines and race cars and all of motorsport, you know, across the board. They don't have a ton of drivers. They have one driver in Formula One. And over the years, that's kind of been, they might have a driver in Formula One. You know, there hasn't been very many Japanese drivers in F1 compared to, you know, British drivers or German or a lot of the other European countries. And again, I think it's just they're not part of that farm system. those junior karting leagues that lead into the, the more advanced leagues with more advanced cars. It's hard for them to get into F2, F3, all that stuff. And then not having that circuit experience, that's kind of the thing. There's a young group of drivers right now, and they all grew up karting together. They're all European, and they all grew up karting together. They know each other very well. Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Alex Albon was in there. If I'm leaving anybody out of it, there were 5, 6, 7 of them, pretty much the same age. They've been racing together since they were 6 years old. You know what I mean? Or against each other since they were 6 years old. I don't see the United States of America. I mean, we were looking at karts the other day, right? There's like electric kart tracks around. It's back in the day, you used to have dirt tracks, and in your garage, you could build your own kart, take your own kart to different dirt tracks, get your kid involved in racing. You're doing the oval thing. The local dirt track in our area is closed now, right?
Formula E's racing today, I think.
Yeah, there is Formula E. I think even F1 fans don't necessarily like Formula E, and the number one reason, is just the noise. So Formula One, and I believe it's maybe 2025, they're going to make their own fuel, right? So they're going away from, whatever, your typical petrol fuel, and so they're going to make their own fuel just so you can keep internal combustion engines, just so you can keep that noise. And because, when you think of a race car, man, you got to think of something that's like, you don't just want to hear the sound of the wind as it goes by. You want to hear some rumble. You want to hear that internal combustion engine. People who've been F1 fans for a long time, they don't really like the current era of engines, which is a V6, turbocharged hybrid engine. They prefer the sound of the V10 or, the V12. The V10 was an excellent sound. You like that engine noise, which you do get with NASCAR. NASCAR gives you some good vibrations. It shakes you in the seats,
Well, the sound component, that's just another sense that you as a fan gets to experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that just adds to the feel. So
it does, yeah. That's part of the experience, 100%. 100%, yeah. When you're there live, when you get to see the show in person, for sure, absolutely. I don't know. Personally, as an American, I'm happy to see the sport growing here in that way.
What would it take for, say Ford or Chevrolet, an American manufacturer, to get a foot in the door? Like, what would it take?
$200 million a year.
They can afford that.
They can if they wanted to. So you only have a couple of engine suppliers in Formula One. Mercedes supplies engines, Ferrari. I'm going to say Honda, even though that's transition. It's now Red Bull has their own engine department, but it's Honda. Honda built the engine. Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull. That might be it. There may only be 3 engine suppliers for 10 teams. Now, the rest of the parts are completely proprietary, minus the tires. Obviously, those are that's on equal footing, and I think that's going to remain that way. But the engine development, they'll change the formula every so many years, and so when they change the formula, then you have that engine development period. Right now, they can't really develop the engines to a large degree. Right now, they're kind of in a parc ferme, as they would call it, which means you can't do serious development at the moment. But if Ford were to go in, or Chevy, or whoever, if they were to go in, would they want to develop their own engines, or would they just want to buy somebody else's?
I'm talking, I'm looking at it through growing the fan base, growing myself in that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I see a successful path already given. You spoke of earlier with the Japanese fan base and having an engine on the
Right,
out there,
right,
something,
right.
something
That's
that you
something,
can plant your flag on.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great point too. And so that's kind of my thought. Any business, any corporation could put their name on the side of the car, right? It makes more sense if you're kind of in the automotive thing. You know, Porsche thought about getting back into it. I think they keep, they keep tap dancing. They're going to do it. They're not going to do it. Ford. I mean, it would make sense for an automotive manufacturer like Ford, or, I mean, even if it was Tesla, that's an American brand. I don't think that they would ever spend the money to do that because that wouldn't make sense. Maybe a Formula E car.
Right, that's not immediately. That's where they should be now if they're not.
Right. If you wanted to kind of go that route, yeah, for sure. When you look at automotive manufacturing, generally speaking, the proving ground throughout history was the racetrack.
Okay.
That's where Ferrari. That's why Ferrari is Ferrari.
Right.
The racetrack. They built the fastest cars. BMW, they've had race success. Mercedes, they have had and continue to have race success. All these cars, even, I mean, shit, Volvo had, the red block, the little 4-cylinder, had that engine thrown into a lot of race cars, and it worked, right? And that's the proving it. Ford, historically speaking, has built some really good race cars, and that's what NASCAR is you got your Fords and your Chevys and Toyota,
Right.
So that is for an auto manufacturer, that historically always has been. The E stuff is different, Tesla is in a different ballgame with that, but historically speaking, and I think it'll continue through history, is like the proving ground for an automobile is the racetrack. So you need a manufacturer in there. You need Ford, you need Chevy. I mean, Tesla, I don't know.
Well, as I was listening to you name off a lot of these, I mean, I would be happy if Ford partnered with, say, Porsche.
Right.
Partner with these people. They're available.
Well, your partnerships are going to. I'm not sure if I've ever seen two auto manufacturers partner.
Well, I'm just saying, I would even be happy with that.
Yeah.
Just give us a piece, something,
right.
as
Something
an
to kinda hang on
American.
to. Yeah. Well, so we've got Haas Race Team that's in there. So what about Haas Race Team partnering with Ford?
Yes.
So now we're off and running,
Yes.
right? We've got Haas Race Team, American Race Team. Ford's going to back them. Ford's going to sponsor them. Ford, Chevy, as a brand, they've lost their sexiness, in my opinion. They make trucks, okay? In America, we have trucks. You go everywhere else in the world, you don't see pickups like we have here. That's a uniquely American thing. Having a half-ton pickup, whatever. But the brand, when I think of Ford and Chevy, I don't think of a race car. I think of a pickup truck. I mean, that's kind of where my head is when I think of Ford and Chevy. You say Chevy, I'm not going Impala. I mean, maybe an old NASCAR fan, maybe that's where his mind is, right? You say Chevy to him, he might think Impala. You say Chevy to me, I'm thinking 250 diesel HD. Let's go pull the John boat. Whatever. I mean, that's where my I don't think of a race car when I think of Ford and Chevy. So it could be good for their brand to get into Formula One, because Formula One is a sexy car brand at the moment.
I mean, Henry Ford started it all, right?
I believe the first car was built by Henry Ford. The model was an A.
My, how the mighty have fallen.
My, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, they're still racing, right? They're going to be on. We got Talladega today at 2:00. They'll be out there running. Fords will be on the track, but the pinnacle of racing is Formula One. And I mean, I'm sorry, NASCAR fans, but a Formula One can beat a NASCAR in every aspect on any track. I mean, they can accelerate quicker, higher top end, much better cornering speed, much better braking speed. I mean, NASCAR's not really a brake, I guess, a lot, but yeah, I mean it. You know,
I mean, and there's equal comparisons from the NASCAR side, you know? I mean, there's side by side racing.
I'm not trying to throw NASCAR
You know,
under the bus, and I am
It's just
throwing
different, you know?
I am throwing NASCAR under the bus. Yes, it is different. It is a completely different type of racing. Oval racing versus GP style racing, completely different, without question. And it's very much one's opinion as to what you prefer or what's better, you know. Globally, it's pretty clear that open wheel GP style racing is more popular because the only people that watch much oval is us here in America watching NASCAR. And the truth about NASCAR is NASCAR's been losing a lot of its fan base. I mean, that's the truth, you know. I don't know if it's getting aged out, you know, I don't know what it is. But in America, NASCAR's popularity is going down. Formula One's popularity is going up. And Formula One's clearly making a push to continue that trend. I mean, having 3 races this year, that's a big deal, you know. They see something in the market here that they're shooting for sure. So we'll see what happens. Honestly, the dedicated track is COTA in Austin's Circuit of the Americas. I think it's a great racetrack. Most people think of it as a pretty good racetrack, and it is. It's a great racetrack, great Formula One racetrack. Miami last year wasn't very entertaining because it's a street circuit. They're not as wide. You don't have as many overtake zones. It's hard for these cars to pass. You know, these are big-bodied cars. They're wide.
And that's my favorite part of racing is the overpassing, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
So I'm probably down on that track just listening to you.
yeah, and again, I mean, it was cool, it was sexy, but no, the racing at Miami wasn't as good a quality racing as, say, a track like COTA or something.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, again, this is another street circuit track. The layout, kind of boxy. I think they did that to try to promote overtaking.
Good.
So we'll see. But typically speaking, road courses are going to be narrower, going to be harder to overtake on, going to be tighter.
Is that what you're referring to as street courses?
Street course, road course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Courses where they're driving on public roads, which they have a handful of, you know.
Okay.
The most famous being Monaco. It's also the smallest and the tightest, and by far the hardest to overtake. There's pros and cons to that too. Like with Monaco, that makes qualifying really, really interesting because you got a 90% chance to win the race if you qualify P1, right?
Where's the racing in that?
Well, but it's just the qualifying. I mean, when you see these guys on a hot lap with a tight track, and dude, they're coming within inches of hitting these walls. I mean, they are on these walls. There's a lot of skill in that, you know, and these things are, I mean, it's incredible. Like I say, the cornering and acceleration and braking is absolutely incredible with these cars, you know. So,
Well, that's racing the track. I like to see them racing at a drive.
yeah,
You know?
and generally speaking, I prefer that too. But it is a nice change of pace.
That's
some
true.
weeks,
It gives the fandom an option.
Right.
Yeah.
So the majority of the tracks are designated racetracks for Formula One. You know, 20 lanes wide. You've got overtake opportunities, et cetera. But then you switch it up, and you've got some of these street circuits, road courses, where they're much narrower. There's no runoff area. If you hit the wall, that's it. You know, so it's a little bit of a mix-up, yeah. And it's what you like, you know. Monaco just has the prestige, and obviously Monaco being Monaco, the billionaire's playground, if you will, all the yachts in the harbor. I mean, it is very picturesque, and it is a cool thing, you know, and a big celebrity show and all that. Which there's a lot of hoopla, and then the racing is just kind of like almost a secondary thing at Monaco, where it's like a who's who sort of a thing. But from a branding standpoint, That's good for you.
I don't. I mean, I couldn't. If they didn't have that, I don't know if I'd know Monaco as being somebody from
right,
America.
Right. Yeah.
How would I know Monaco?
Yeah.
I know Monaco because it's
because of the race.
in my mind. That's the biggest race of the year across all auto racing.
Probably is kind of the most desired, most prestitious.
Most prestigious.
Yeah,
That'd probably be more
No, I mean it.
accurate.
It probably is.
Yeah.
That the Le Mans 24 hours, and then the Indy 500 used to be up there, but the Indy 500's kind of lost some of its steam. You know, I mean, when you tune into Monaco, you're going to see Tom Brady. You're going to see, you name a celebrity, an athlete, or something.
Right.
You're likely to see him out there on the yacht.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we watched the Indy 500. I mean,
Movies, that's portrayed in a lot of movies.
We didn't see any celebrities watching the Indy 500 the last time we watched it. I don't recall seeing any celebrities. They might have been in the stands, but I didn't see them like I did at Monaco. You know, and that's your brand. And the Indy racing is it's completely different. So NASCAR and F1, and it's a little more similar to F1 in the open wheel factor, but. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to watch Vegas this year. I'm excited that Formula One's growing in America because I'm a Formula One fan. I am.
I need like we just got through talking about Formula One, Ford. I need some sustainability. Let's support this Haas racing. Who are they with?
Chevy, get in there. I don't care.
Do not. Dodge, where you at?
Mm-hmm. I think Haas buys their engines from Ferrari. I believe. I'm sorry if I don't have all my notes in front of me on this. We're just kind of going off the cuff on this. I think Haas have been buying their engines from Ferrari. Then obviously they have to develop.
So they're just throwing money at it.
A lot of the chassis they have to develop in house. The body, aerodynamics. That's really a huge thing in Formula One. Is your body aerodynamics, your wings. Your skirts, or not skirts, but side plates. And Haas has been on the fence of getting out. Haas needs a partner. Haas is hemorrhaging money in Formula One right now. Them having 3 races in America should help Haas, considering they're an American team.
Right.
I think that they would want some good results in America, right?
Well, that's my next thing. Then you got to get a winner. There's so much to get. Like we can get to Japan level, but then to get we got to get a winner up there.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to have somebody that.
And that might be America's biggest crux, if you will, is like. As an American, if you ain't first, you're last.
Makes sense.
Americans want winners. Americans are winners. We don't appreciate trophies in 6th place. Are you kidding me? You give people points for 6th place. Like no. America wants winners. That's what America loves. They've always loved winners.
And they want them now. They don't have time for
them to grow. And they want them now.
Not in 2023. You got to come out in the womb.
Yeah, that's right. You got to come out of the womb first place.
That's right.
So Haas.
I was a younger brother. I had no shot.
Yeah, that was it. You were like, put him back in.
Yeah. Useless.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's. For America to have a successful race team in any sport, anywhere, to get American fans, you can't just have the flag. You need trophies too. You need to be up there. Red Bull is interesting because a lot of people who don't know anything about Red Bull, you would just kind of naturally assume that that's an American company, right? Mm-hmm. And Red Bull's in charge of F1 right now. But they're not. They're an Austrian Taiwanese company, I believe. They're not American. I know that. So, I mean, you gotta have winners. You gotta have winners for an American race team. I hope Haas hangs in there, but I'm with you, man. They need to partner with somebody, an American auto manufacturer. I mean, I don't care if it is Tesla. You know, I mean,
Formula One's investing in America. America, invest in Formula One.
invest in Formula One. Let's
You know?
let's get in there. Let's get back on the global stage because it's a global thing. Formula One, you know. Let's show them what we can do. You know, like you say, we invented the car, right? Probably invented racing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Did Henry not write anything down?
yeah, it hasn't been lost to the annals of history. Yeah, we'll see. We're gonna probably live stream Talladega here in a little bit. Tune in for that. Hopefully there'll be some good action, some good racing. Yeah, I mean, just entertain me. That's what pro sports are, racing, just entertainment. However. So until next time.
Not first, you last.
If you ain't first, you last.